This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Rekha Sharma, and I played Landry on Star Trek Discovery. You are listening to The Edge on Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of The Edge, Trek FM's dedicated podcast to Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Amy Nelson, and with me this week is Patrick Devlin. Patrick, hello, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. And boy, if you didn't listen to postcards, we had the most response. I'm just still overcome by how many comments. We had over 400, Patrick.
And yet you got it published in a day.
That because I felt so bad last week when it came out so late, and I was getting messages from listeners, when's postcards? I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I did the quick turnaround for my listeners and hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, that was a lot of comments. And I think because we had such an amazing introduction to If Memory Serves. So we're going to talk about this, but what did you think when you saw the beginning of The Cage?
Oh, so it's great you bring this up because this is the first question I had for Larry Nemechek when I met him yesterday. I said, so what'd you think? And he said, oh, it was a good episode. I go, no, but what did you think about how that started? He goes, I thought my computer was playing the wrong episode. And I said, so did I.
Me too.
I was like, wait, I don't remember this being the way Menagerie starts or The Cage starts. And then here's what's funny. Dr. Trek himself looks at me and goes, you're right. They now use that footage in 2 episodes that weren't The Cage. So he didn't even think about the fact that this was now the second time they were reusing this footage.
Wow.
But I loved it. I liked it a lot. They did it, and that they didn't just reproduce the scenes. They gave you the original scenes, and you could see. Some people complain that they didn't like seeing the difference. I think that's crazy. I think that's absolutely absurd. These episodes are 40 years, 50 years apart. So in filming, 50-something years apart in filming, 52, I think now. So of course there's differences. And the fact that they did that was phenomenal to me. I loved it. And for someone like, and I know I talk about my wife a lot on this show, but it's because this is the first Star Trek she's really getting behind. And it's also the first one she's watching as it airs. So she's watched all the others, but never as they were new episodes. So for someone like her, this is great because she didn't see The Cage. And now you know what she wants to do? She wants to watch The Cage.
Yes.
So the first thing she asked me was, oh, can we see that episode? Like, does that episode actually exist? Because I've told her that The Cage was the original pilot and it never really aired. And I've told her the story of it. And I was like, yes. And that's why when you messaged me, I'm watching The Cage, I was like, where'd you find it? Because a bunch of it's not on CBS All Access. It's not.
I know. I looked there first.
Me too. It's a lot of places it's not, but it is on Amazon Prime, and I have that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching it and with my brother, and again, he's TNG. He has I don't think he's even seen a full episode of the original series. And we started playing, and I was like, did you hit the wrong play button? What is going on? I was so confused, but I love the recap because it highlighted just the things that you needed to know, and
exactly.
I loved seeing the vintage, 66, The Cage. And I'm glad, just like you, that they didn't redo it. I loved seeing Jeffrey Hunter, and then the turning over to Anson Mount, and you're like, oh my, this perfect casting. I'm telling you, I love Anson Mount, but even now more so because it was just so perfect. He's got the look of Jeffrey Hunter. So
only thing difference is one has some gray hair.
Yeah, I know.
That's it. And he's supposed to be older. So it makes sense.
Exactly. I know. And and the blue flowers and the sound effects that they use, the little music, and just I was very, very happy to see it. And I did go watch The Cage afterwards, and I'm glad that they showed only those snippets, because that's all we really needed to know. Of course, it's nice having the backstory, but for like your wife and for many viewers who Discovery is their first Trek, they showed you enough, and then you got to know the rest of the story for Discovery.
It was great. And it answered my question, because the week before I had actually said on this show that I didn't know if they were going to just ignore the fact that, General Order 7. I said it flat out because we didn't hear anything about it. And then they immediately show this, and I'm like, oh, they're remembering the past. So it was great. And it makes sense with the name of this episode. But, I didn't know that when we recorded last week. And they definitely did. So one thing that I was talking to Brandon this morning, I'll probably actually bring him up twice during this, but I was talking to Brandon, one thing he mentioned, because he actually tweeted, and Larry actually mentioned it to me yesterday when I met him, that someone had said they better have singing flowers or this episode's no good to me. So then that happened the first minute of the episode, when we got into the Discovery side of the episode. And so I was talking to Brandon, he was like, he was like a little schoolgirl squealing. Like, he was just so happy about it. And but what he mentioned, and I didn't notice it, when Burnham grabs the pedal, all the sound stops. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not a negative. He didn't mention this as a negative. He just mentioned it as, we were talking about how they filmed things back then, because that filming is still amazing. Even though it's clearly older, it's great. Mm-hmm. When Spock would grab the pedals, depending on if he had one or two, the tone changed. So it was like one note was disappearing.
Right.
Opposed to all of them going silent. In this one, they went all silent. It's fine. Whatever. It is what it is. But it was just really cool that they thought that far into it back in, the Cage, to have the tone change instead of just the music go out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed that too, and I really like that aspect of The Cage, because they had multiple people, the two people touching it, and different notes would disappear, but it was pretty cool. I really loved it. It was great, and like I said, I've heard some people complain about even showing it to us, and I think that's crazy talk. Yeah,
and one of the people who said it I really like a lot, but he's crazy.
Yeah, we know. He's my negative Nelly.
Yes. He's just
love
crazy
you, Mark.
He's just crazy this time. Sorry, Mark.
Well, so in preparing for this episode, what was your approach? How are you coming at talking about this episode this week?
All right. So unlike every other week where I've watched it 7 times, I got to see this once. And so my approach is, hope I remember things.
That is not true. You said you recognized a theme, and so this is what we're going with.
We're going into that part? Okay, great.
Yes.
Well, I think you should give your theme first, because I think my theme actually plays off your theme.
Okay. So I'm not going to lie, because I do read every comment on the Babel Conference, and there's fabulous comment about the themes of this episode. And so I'm going to sort of approach this in the theme of memories, and how memories serve to shape us and to, help us to be who we are, and what do we do with those memories? Are they going to remain hurtful, or are they going to help us to be better people? Because you can't change what you've done in the past. And so how we interpret those memories, I think, is what I'm going to look at. And then we can talk about, each pair, each type of memory as we go through the episode. So that's how I'm going to approach this episode.
Okay, so to build on that, the memories we do see, because you're absolutely right. I didn't even think of it, but you're absolutely right. It's memories. Every one of those memories were heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We see, and we'll get into it deeper, but we see what Michael did to Spock, and then Spock's reaction to that. both of those were heartbreaking. We see Culber and Stamets, and that was heartbreaking. We see the only one was probably Culber, and Tyler wasn't heartbreaking, but
I thought
it was
so.
for Culber, but not. It's not the same because I don't think it was. It's a different. It's not a relationship in the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was painful, but I don't think it was heartbreaking. If that makes sense. What Culber was going through was, but I think that really more pigtails off of the Stamets our conversation with Culber than Tyler, in my opinion.
Well, we're going to get there because I think it is heartbreaking. But
all of the memories, even Vina and Pike, all of them are heartbreaking or heartbreaking responses.
Mm-hmm. So
that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And I did it because in the middle of watching it, when Stamets said to Culber, I don't have any feelings, my wife was almost in tears and said, that's so heartbreaking. And I thought, oh, so is everything else we've learned today.
Yeah. It definitely was a heart-wrenching episode for sure. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, let's get to the Michael and Spock relationship because there were so many cool context building and getting to know them on such a different level than we've ever known. I mean, even in the animated series where we have Spock as young Spock, but it's like now there's the scenes between Spock and Michael were unbelievably rich. I couldn't believe it. And Ethan Peck is amazing. So
yes, absolutely.
And that young Spock, his face, perfect casting. Again, I still am amazed at the actors that they get to come on Discovery. But his face, I was thinking about it, like when there's been research, like when you look at a certain type of face shape, like people have emotional responses. And so because young Spock's face was so round and just a little bit pudgy, like that isn't endearing. You want to nurture, you want to take it. He was so young looking and innocent, and those eyes and just the shape of his face. I was like, it created empathy automatically before he even said any words. Just that selection, I was just blown away.
Right. You already feel bad for them before you even know why you should.
Yeah.
Immediately, just like you said, by seeing him, because he has that childhood innocence look down to a T.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. The casting for this is unbelievable. But the casting for this whole series has been unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing I wanted to say about young Spock was it really hit me on the second rewatch. So we have the memories that are brought forward, and Michael sees Spock's memories, and then at the end, Spock sees Michael's memory. But what impressed me on the second rewatch was that Spock shared his memory of seeing the Red Angel coming because he knew that Michael was in the forest and was going to be killed. And when I thought about that, and Spock went and told his parents, and that's how Michael was saved, right?
Correct.
And so, but what surprised me was that event happened after Michael had said those terrible things to him. So even with that, young Spock cared enough, loved enough that even though Michael was in danger, he was going to do something about it, even though he was so wounded by it.
Yes, and it's clear that he was extremely wounded by it. But it's also clear to me that until the events of this episode, he never truly lost his humanity either. He never, not that he lost it, he still never lost it afterwards, but he pushes it to the side, and this is the moment that causes that change everyone's been talking about between the cage and the first episode of TOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when he said, when he was talking to Michael and saying, when you left, that was the catalyst to go full Vulcan.
Yeah, but I don't believe that either. I believe that the real truth is this moment pushes it that far. Because even though he says that, if you take the events as they happen with where the cage fits in, he was smiling in the cage, right? Everyone always makes that comment about, well, that's because he didn't really believe what he was saying until he sees this memory. Because it seems like he almost forgets, like he pushed that memory aside of how Michael treated him when they were children. And now that he sees it again, because he reacts so strongly to it, if it was something that happened 30 years ago, I don't think the reaction would be as strong. Because he said, you made me realize that humanity is my weakness, or something along those lines, you know? Yeah. And I think it's this moment that moving forward, his humanity is going to be suppressed to become the Spock we know.
Interesting. Huh.
It makes,
I haven't
it
thought
makes the
about
cage fit. You know what I mean? Like, everything else kind of fits no matter where you place where he gives up the humanity, except doing it from this moment forward makes the cage fit perfectly.
Huh. Okay. Something to ponder. All right.
So, but now, like so you were saying about the memories. Now this is the heartbreak part, right? Because we didn't really talk about the exact action. Basically, she told him, I don't love you and I hate you and I don't want you near me, because he wouldn't listen to logic and she wouldn't listen to his logic about, I need to leave to protect you. And she said, and he's basically telling her, we're a family, we protect each other. So she gives up that line of thought and she tells him, I don't want you near me. And that's horrible to hear from. But I'll tell you this too, I have a boy and a girl, and they are not best friends all the time. They don't want to see each other, they don't want to talk. So like, for that to have that profound of an effect is a little weird, because in real children, they say that to each other more often than you'd think.
Yeah, and I found almost a little cold Spock's response when Michael at the very end was apologizing. She's like, I should have tried something better, you know, and he was like, sort of just, well, your apology doesn't matter. You know, I felt a little cold about that, but I was thinking, you know, she was young, a teenager. And yes, there definitely was other ways that she could have, you know, talked to Spock and said, you know, and done it more logical in a way that he would have been receptive to it. But she was young, you know, and it was like, this was the thing that came to her mind. She's obviously very emotional. And this was the thing, it's like, get away. And I think so many times, like, if I'm thinking she said that because if she would have heard that, she would have run away in tears, and it, you know, and she was wanting that desired effect on Spock, and it didn't really have that effect. So I think, you know, she just was so young, and that as an adult, she realized, man, I really could have done something differently. And for that, I apologize. I think she still wanted the outcome for her to be separated to protect the family. But I think she had that realization, and through experience, there's different ways, more than one way to skin a cat, as you said.
But I don't think in her situation, that any of those were viable. There was tons of ways she could have gotten away, but she was trying to get away right then, and she's running away. So she's trying to make sure that her adopted parents don't catch her and stop her, right? She's trying to tell him, I need to leave to save you. This is my way of protecting you. He's not listening. He's not receptive to that message. So, you know what? I got to get out of here before they wake up and come out here. I need to get him to go back inside and leave me alone. Could they have debated for an hour and a half? Yeah, but they probably wake up the parents. So in the moment, there really wasn't any other. I think she's being a bit too hard on herself because she didn't mean it. It's obvious. And he even says, I know you didn't mean it, but I hate you for it. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I see what you're saying, that there was definitely other avenues. I don't know if in the moment anyone could have came up with another way.
Yeah, and at her young age, that's the thing too. Consider
but I'm 36. I don't think I could do it right. If I was trying to get away from you, and because I didn't want someone to kill you, like if you weren't listening to, hey, guys are coming to shoot me right now.
Yeah, I think, I mean, when I look back, I would think, well, I wouldn't be running away without talking to him first. Like that could have been changed. So she could have had the conversation in his room, you know, and then had the time to explain in a logical way that he would have been receptive. Like, you know, the fact that she was leaving without even saying goodbye, like that's, again, just in the moment, it seemed right to her. And again, I think that's just youth.
True. Yeah, I could see that, you know. That makes sense. Like I said, I think she's a little too hard on herself because I mean, I don't know. I've never been in a situation where I have to get people away from me because I'm about to be killed. But, so I don't know. Does she not tell him? Is it logical to believe she doesn't want to have that conversation because she doesn't want him to go back to the parents and say, this is what she's thinking and we need to stop her. We're family. Because remember, his whole argument is, no, we're family and we stick together. That's his whole argument through this whole thing. So eventually she says, you're not my family and you'll never be my family, because that's the only way she can get through to him that I don't want you here.
Right. To break that argument.
Right.
That's where your weak link is. Yeah.
Exactly. No, and then his response after he sees this memory again is another heartbreak, because he tells her, I don't care that you're sorry.
Yeah. See?
I don't care. You made me realize that humanity is a terrible thing for me and that I should abandon it at all costs. That's your fault. And I don't ever want to fix this relationship again. Now, I get it. It kind of had to happen because we never hear about her again from him, but did it really have to happen, or could we just not have ever heard of her again? I mean, you know, people would complain either way. People are either going to complain that we didn't need that because it's not logical for him to feel that way, and it's not logical for him to feel that way. But we also know that he's done a lot of illogical things at times. Not a lot, but he's done things at times because his human side, being pissed off about this, is showing through, despite the fact that he's saying this is the moment that he's no longer going to be human. And on top of that, you know, if you had it the other way where he just never talks about it again, you'd still have the people screaming, but we never heard of her having a sister before. This is ridiculous. So,
well, it was funny because I was listening to Standard Orbit and Zach Moore said jokingly, but in all seriousness, he's like, well, the reason we didn't hear about any of these family members was because we didn't have a 7th season of the original series like we did on TNG, where we got to meet everyone's brother, sister, you know.
It's true.
And I had to laugh. I'm like, all right.
It's true. Other than Discovery, it is the shortest series to this. Well, unless you count TA, the animated series. But as far as actual actors, it's still the shortest of completed series.
So one other thing about Michael and Spock before moving on, I really liked when they got into the Talos the Talos system, and there was the huge black hole, and Spock just took over controls and took him right into that black hole. And I was like freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? He's insane. He's just going to kill everyone. And then it was just the, what's that called?
It was the telepathy that they were using to hide. But what I like is she's like, it was a test. More so than just an illusion, right? Yeah. It was actually a test. And then she learns, wait, you were here before? Which was great. And another part of that was really cool was, well, first of all, what I liked about that, before I move on, what I liked about that was she goes to stop, he pushes her and slams the gas on. She fights back and gets back to the gas. He slams her again and pushes it on again. So it wasn't just like he slammed into it and that was the end of it. Like, that was a really well thought out scene.
Yeah, she kicked him, man.
Right. And then they go down to the planet and we have the little petals scene, which was really cool, and all the sounds on the planet. And then we meet Vina again, right? So, and I love the way the Telosians looked. I love that. And I love the part where she's like, well, when they found me, I was near death and I could have looked like this for eternity. And then they get rid of the mental images of her. And she's like, I know it's just an image, but I still feel good about it. You know, I like that scene. And I mean, some people point out that's like ultimate vanity, but okay.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people with ultimate vanity.
Yep.
It doesn't make her a bad person. I mean, It's just a really cool scene.
It is. Yeah. That was, well, and that moves us to Pike and Vina.
Another heart-wrenching story that so I'm jumping right to the end here, but she created her memory of him, or they created her memory of him for her to live with for eternity.
Yeah.
Aw.
I know.
I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Okay, so before getting to the end, I thought, we talked about Pike's memory But then more specifically, not just about Talos 4, but his memory of Vina. And what a unique relationship. Because when I watched The Cage, I still wasn't quite sure, is Vina real? And even in The Cage, there's not a straight answer. She's like, I'm as real as you want to be. I'm like, what does that mean?
I always assume she's not.
Really?
Like I always assumed up until this episode that she wasn't because of that line.
Yeah.
I'm as real as you want to be. Yeah. My daughter would say the same thing about our imaginary friends.
Yeah.
You know, so like when that line has always stuck with me as she's not. And I actually opened up when they showed it being like his memory, the old showing The Cage, and then it kind of it comes off as he was just thinking about it at that moment. How convenient.
Yeah.
But so when they did that, I was like, yeah, she's fake. And then she does the whole scene where she shows what she would really look like. I'm like, I guess she's not fake. I always thought she was fake.
Well, yeah, so that's why I'm a little unsure. Of how real is she, and what is real in Talosian's definition, I guess.
No, I think she's 100% human now.
Okay.
I thought back then she was just a mental projection to suck him into a trap. But now I believe she is real. And now in this episode, she kind of says that she chose to look this way, but I think they modeled, she was banged up, right? They showed us the big scar on her face and all that.
Yeah.
And she was pretty badly beaten up, but they modeled the image of her for him.
Right. Well, and because we know in The Cage that she was like made to look that way to capture him.
Right. Like in this one, she kind of says she chose to look that way. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I think she got to continue to look that way because she tried to capture him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But such strong emotions that they both share for each other. Are you buying that?
Yes.
Okay.
I am. I know it's kind of weird because they had such a short time together to begin with, but I mean, it's playing on the love at first sight theory, right? So you might meet somebody and then that's it. You can't stop thinking about them. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
it makes sense to me.
The scenes between Pike and Vina were so very touching, and you know when he finally sees her on Discovery, sort of near the end where they have the illusion and they can see each other. And Pike grabs her hair. And I just thought that is the most tender, and just like, are you here? I can't believe this. It was, so tender and so personal. Like you wouldn't just do that to anyone. They obviously shared a relationship and have this past together.
And obviously, he wanted it to continue, but it can't for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So, I loved those scenes, by the way, and I loved the outcome of those scenes. But again, we're back to heartbreaking. I mean, he's obviously missing her, right? That's the whole point of the memory.
Yeah.
And she's dying to be with him, even before we know that she is with a fake him. But she even says, well, it's you, but it's really only my memory of you.
Right.
Like that line is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm not the sappiest person on the planet by any stretch of the imagination. Anyone who has heard me talk for months on this network knows that. But this is heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah. So what did you think about when Pike learns that there was this illusion of him living with Vina the whole time? When I heard that and saw that, and sort of with The Cage, you see Pike's, going to be beamed away, but then there's a Pike going down in the elevator with Vina. And I was like, that's a little weird. And because so many people like being unique, and that's been discussed. I mean, even on Star Trek, And so to know that there's this other Pike on Talos 4 with Vina living out this life, I don't know. That didn't sit too well with me.
I don't know. I mean, it's creepy to have a photocopy of yourself, but he's still unique because that Pike doesn't have all of his experiences. Because remember, that Pike is fashioned simply off of what Vina remembers. And she doesn't, as much as they know about each other, they didn't spend a lot of time together, so she doesn't know everything about him. She had to, in her head, come up with his responses to things that may not be the same. Plus, things have happened since the cage that have changed who Pike is today.
Right.
It didn't change him enough not to love her, but that Pike on that planet is not the Pike that we see every week.
Right. And it, again, made me think, like, what a choice Vina would make to stay on the planet and to have this pretend Pike. Because, and it makes me think of, like, Next Gen, 11001001, and where Riker, falls for Minuet. But it's like Riker knows that this is just this enhanced, holodeck character. Vina knows this is just an illusion, just a projection. And she's okay living this every day to day with this illusion. I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. No, living in a fake world.
I don't think I could either, but I've never been faced with a consequence of you're stuck on a planet and you're the only human there.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're at. She wasn't leaving. They weren't going to let her. So she's making the best of a bad situation, and I'm sure there's a disorder of some sort involved here that I don't know about, that I can't figure, you know what I mean? And look, we see it, you can read news articles all the time that people are losing themselves, not in normal video games, but they're losing themselves in like these open world sandbox games like Second Life, where they're going into this game, getting married in the game, and then that's more important than their day-to-day real lives. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this is not something that's actually happening. It's not happening on a scale that everyone's talking about it in the world. But you can look up, there was a guy who sued some woman because she took all his stuff when they divorced in a game. Mm-hmm. And so that's and I'm sure there's a named disorder after this, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So let's move on to Culber, because there's a couple relationships with Culber that we got to explore this week, thankfully. Let's go to Culber and Stamets first. Like, Stamets has these memories of how things were, and they're very real, and he just wants to pick up and move on and go together. And Culber, he says, I have these memories, but I'm not sensing it. It's not feeling, they're not connecting. Like, I can't even imagine what that would feel like to have a memory and to not have those emotions connect. Like, that's got to be super crazy in your mind.
Horrific, but I looked at it from the other side more. Like, I couldn't imagine being the other person in that relationship. Like,
of being Stamets.
Right. I remember what we were. You remember what we were, but you don't feel anything anymore? Like,
yeah.
How can you remember that and not feel anything?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what Culber is thinking to himself too, but like, I don't know. My perspective was from Stamets, probably because we've seen him more. Mm-hmm. But like, I just, again, heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for both of them in this scene, because you have that. And he's like, why are you mad at me? He goes, you know what, Paul? That's a good question. Like, he doesn't even know what to say back to it at that point. Mm-hmm. And he just storms out to go find Tyler.
Yes.
So,
because where his anger should be placed. And so it seems like they're not going to be together right now.
Well, I like that you added right now.
Yeah.
Because this bothered me a lot, actually. This really did. Because if you... So we talked about, and there's been debate on why he got brought back. If it was part of the plan, if it was a response, whatever. It doesn't matter. To me, the important part is we're bringing him back one way or another. We need to get back to a point where they're back together or something along those lines, because this isn't a payoff enough for me. It's just not. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I was talking to Chris D. Littlefield about it on Messenger, but... And we were talking, and I said, I'm really conflicted because I like the storyline, actually. But you had this big uprise that they did this to the gay relationship, and then they're doing it a second time. And while talking about it, I realized I was completely wrong. That what they're actually doing, because relationships in Star Trek are terrible, but what they're actually doing is treating it, they're actually doing exactly what I wanted them to do with a relationship like this, and treating it like any other relationship they've ever written for. They're not thinking about them as two men in a relationship. They're just thinking about, let's write a story for this relationship and let's see where it goes. And isn't that where we're trying to get to, right? Like,
Yes.
as a society, that we don't even think about the fact of, oh, is it a man and a woman? Is it a woman and a woman? Is it a man and a man? We're just thinking about, okay, this is the relationship and this is what's presented in front of us. So I was a bit conflicted, but I'm very happy to see that they're writing this, that the only reason why it plays into, the man and man part plays into it is because we're bringing it in, not because it's actually part of this story.
Yeah, it is not part of the story at all. It is, like you say, a relationship, and what happens, when you have these memories and the emotions don't match. Like, that disconnect causes the disconnect in their relationship.
Right.
It is heartbreaking.
And I definitely think at the end of all this, we're going to see them back together. I think that I would be upset if we don't.
Yeah.
I would, because it's like the first relationship in Star Trek history that was good.
I know, right?
You're going to ruin that one? That's the one you're going to destroy? I could point out to every other relationship you should have ruined, but this is the one you're going to end on me?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not even the mushy kind, but come on. Every other relationship was ridiculously terrible.
It was.
So, whatever.
Yeah. And I like, when you say that, who are you mad at? Well, I don't know. And then he goes to find Tyler.
Greatest line of the episode, of the entire episode, if not the season. It was 2 lines, and it's, who do you think you're talking to? And he goes, I don't even know. Right? Yeah. Or I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Whatever. But those were the 2 best lines, because he was talking to himself.
Yeah.
Oh no, he said, I don't even know who I am anymore. And then he said, yeah, who do you think you're talking to? Right. Because I don't know who I am, and that's what caused this whole problem in the first place. Mm-hmm. Greatest line of the episode. Probably the series.
Yeah.
To this point.
The fight scene between them was incredible. I thought it was so good. Like, I just really felt the emotion in it. I don't know. It seemed different than just other fights that we've seen. Like,
it wasn't just fighting for a battle's sake. This was, Culber wanted to kill him because he was so mad at him for what he's going through right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a little secret. When we saw that picture, there was people commenting about the picture of Saru, and they're like, oh, it looks like he just finished the dance number.
Oh, yeah.
Now, maybe it's because I'm a New Yorker and I'm not that happy-go-lucky, but I saw it and I didn't comment on it. I really wish I should have, because I thought to myself, and I might have said it to 1 or 2 people. So if I did say it to you in a text message, please post at the bottom that I actually said this. I said it looks like he's holding people back from a fight.
Oh.
Like, when we were kids, and maybe again because I grew up in New York City, like, if there was a fight at the bus stop, there was always one guy that kept everyone else from jumping in and letting them fight. Now, they weren't going to jump in to pick a side, but that's what used to happen when I was a kid, when people had a fight at the bus stop. And I didn't want to see, if I would have said that, I would have gotten murdered on Babel Conference for it. I would have been right, by the way.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I did not think about holding people, but I have not been around any fights in my life, so.
I've seen a few. But that's exactly what that's what it looked like to me. Like, I didn't think he just broke out and danced in the middle of the ship. So, like, when I read that, I said, nah, he's holding people back from a fight. And I didn't think that was it either. I didn't know what it was. But that's the image that I got in my head. I didn't know this is where we were leading. I'm not that good, but that was another great set of lines, by the way, when they're talking about that fight, and Pike was like, "You just let it happen." He goes, "Well, there's not really I don't know the exact words. Do you have them by any chance?
Yeah, no, I don't have the exact, but it's like, there's no regulation about Klingon grafted bones onto human with
a dead doctor who's back from the dead. Like,
yeah, insurrected doctor from the dead or whatever.
and Mike just kind of goes, so I guess we'll have to make it up as we go along.
Yeah.
But we can't have fist fights anymore. Like,
well, and since we're talking about it, I just thought that was such a good scene because, Pike understands the necessity of it. And Saru, makes his case. It really needed to happen. Yes, it does. But, well, fine for this time, but it can't happen again. Yeah. And I think that's the exact line that he needed to take as a leader. To get all of them on board, that he understands the dynamics. And it really makes me feel, it reminded me of being a teacher and when I catch kids cheating, and it may be just on a simple assignment. I get it. Every kid cheats. I'm not stupid. But when I catch them, I'm having the serious one-on-one. Like, this is, your job. Are you going to, do the whole integrity? And, sometimes I make them cry because I'm that convincing. Yes, I am proud of that fact. But, I don't want people cheating, and Pike doesn't want people fighting to work out their differences. There's a proper way to go about it. So I thought it was the best example of his leadership style again as captain.
I couldn't agree more, except I don't think all right. Yes, it's absolutely right. My problem is that the fight scene they gave us, while great, didn't get to the point where I think it's over. I think I think these two need to be rolling on the floor. Look, if I was writing the story, at some point they would have been rolling on the floor just throwing haymakers, because there's that much emotion involved in this that I don't think that fight, in reality, if this was two real people, would have been enough to say, okay, they got it out of their system. Because look, I work in the construction field. We've talked about how different that professional field is from every other. Sometimes guys just got to throw fists. I mean, I haven't been involved in a fist fight. I've seen a few shoving matches, and I saw a guy throw a hammer through a sheetrock wall. But sometimes you just have to get it out of your system. And the military is one of those places where stuff like that sometimes happens. And this is a quasi-military operation with people who just went through a war. So a complete military operation. And so to me, sometimes you just got to let them throw haymakers at each other. And it didn't get there. I know that's what they were trying to give us.
Well, I think you have a point if both parties are invested. And I don't see Tyler as being there for something to prove. Like Culber, definitely. And Culber is, he's sort of on the right for going after him because he was killed
murderer.
But he does understand the difference because he's like, call out Vogue. And he's like, well, it doesn't work that way. Well, then you're getting it, and it's like, I think Culber does have that realization that it is between Vogue and Vogue is unreachable. So Tyler's going to be the substitute. But then that last moment of the fight where they're just face to face, that's how I feel that it is. I mean, not put to rest, but I don't think it's going to come to this fist fighting again because of that look, because of that shared memory that they each have. Like, I was a different person. Like that bond, now that they both realize they are completely different people, and who are we going to be going forward? I think that's what, to me, that look that they gave each other said all of that in my mind.
I think you're completely right. I just wanted to see someone throwing haymakers.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be, I don't know. And then maybe get to the point where they're back up on their feet and face to face and do that whole thing. I don't think the fight in real life went far enough to get to the point where they're standing there like that at that moment. You're also
they
right.
were being thrown around on tables and pushed. I mean, that was pretty significant.
It doesn't hurt
Starfleet.
as much as a haymaker to the skull.
Well, you keep saying haymaker. I have no idea. I'm just assuming it's a thrown punch.
As far back as you can go, as hard forward as you can swing it.
Okay. Well, there was actually, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, Wilson Cruz tweeted and was sort of justifying. He's like, I know a lot of people wanted me to win, quote unquote, the fight. And he's all, but there comes a point where the fighting has to stop. And so I appreciated Wilson's Cruz tweet about that and sort of saying, so I feel a little bit better that it's like, yes, they had their one-on-one and throwing punches, but now we need to move forward because we all are all in Starfleet together.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think I didn't want him to win. Not that I don't want Culber to win. Don't like take it the wrong way. This outcome is preferable to just Culber whooping him.
Yeah.
It's also not really realistic. Culber's a doctor and Voke is in section Tyler's in.
Yeah, but
Tyler is
I
Voke
saw
and
his
in
body.
31.
He got the muscles.
Yeah, but that's not all you need for fights.
Oh, that's true.
You know, I mean, Tyler, Voke, whatever, are both trained at fighting.
Trained, yeah.
So if
Security
he just,
officer and Klingon torchbearer, yeah.
right, and a guy who was in getting beat up by Klingons, you know, to prove that he was Tyler, if he would have lost that fight easily, that's just not good writing.
Yeah.
So I didn't want him to win. Plus, you don't end up in that situation where they are face to face, and he says, "I don't know who I am," and he goes, "Who are you talking to?" Or "Look who you're talking to," which is a preferable outcome to just Culber pounding on. I mean, that would have been fun too, but this is a preferable outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Still talking about Tyler, I found it interesting, again, that dynamic between Pike and Tyler and sort of what happened on this episode where Tyler just comes out and tells Pike, you know, you've got to trust Burnham. You know, don't bring her back. Just trust Burnham that she's going to do the right thing. And then the whole dialogue, Pike was like, well, if you trust Burnham, why are you working with Section 31? And then he starts talking about the gray areas, you know, that's where he needs to be because he does know how to work in the gray area. And I thought, man, I'm thinking that his loyalties, he's going to have to choose between Section 31 and Michael.
I think so too. And I think, so I agree that he knows how to work in the gray areas, but I think to me, I interpreted that more as he is the gray area because he does have Voke and Tyler. He's not really Voke or Tyler. Not completely.
He's a half-breed.
I guess. I mean,
See what I did there?
Yes. But he's not really accepted by either side completely because of it.
Right.
So, you know, the Klingons saw him as human, and because he looks human, and then even though he looks human, the humans consider him a Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he is the gray area, and that means he can do the things that the average Starfleet officer, which is what he was getting at, can't do. And he says to keep you safe, which, come on, is what every single fan of Section 31 has ever said.
Exactly.
So now they actually just flat out said it.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so that's true. Like, and with Spock, going back to this half-breed thing, like, you know, the Vulcans won't accept him because they see him as human. The humans won't accept him because they see him as Vulcan. And now with Culber, like, I think sort of more, he's not accepting of himself. Of course, he doesn't even know who he is right now. But, you know, it's like, is he human? Is he mycelial insurrection stuff? I mean, yeah, he's going to be this half-breed as well.
Yes. And I think, like you said, I think his issue is that he doesn't accept who he is. Mm-hmm. Because he remembers the memories, but he doesn't feel anything to the memories.
Yeah.
You know, like, technically speaking, the human mind doesn't remember pain. Like, you might remember it hurt a lot, but you don't actually remember the sensation of the pain. Does that make sense?
Physical pain? Yeah.
Yes. So, like if you got a cut, like, I broke my arm. I broke my leg. Now, I remember that was really painful.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I remember about it. That it was really, really, I don't ever want to go through it again. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't remember the actual sensation of the pain that was involved. And that's kind of like his memory now. Like, he remembers being with Stamets. He remembers being the doctor. He doesn't remember any of the sensations involved with any of these emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, did you have any you already said your favorite lines, but anything else that you wanted to throw out or any nitpicks?
No, I don't think I had any nitpicks for this episode.
Okay, then I have them for the both of us.
Good. Let it be you this time. I was yelled at.
Okay.
Go ahead. You go first, and maybe I'll.
So done. I don't know who the director is, but I don't think I like him or her, and I should have looked it up so that I could be more specific. Okay, I am done with the spinning ship. I'm done with the spinning angles. I am done. So help me with another lens flare. I'm done with it. It was overused. It annoyed the crap out of me. Every time I saw this stupid flare come on my TV, it takes me out of it. And why do we need to spin on Section 31? We don't. I get it. We're in space. That is my very first note that I have. Even beyond the cage is again with the spinning angles, frowny face.
So, all right. So I have a nitpick about you. Because your hatred of the flares makes the flares take me out of the episode. Because every time I see them, I think, oh, there's another thing Amy hates.
Oh, no.
But I don't think about them in any other way. Because I don't care.
Oh, and I really enjoyed them in the movies, 09,
it's on a giant
Into
screen.
Darkness. I mean, they were there, fine there, but it's just, okay, we're episode, what are we, 7? Episode 8.
8.
Yes. Okay, I'm done with the spinning. We talked about it on postcards, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and I was like, well, I don't mind it. Okay, I mind it now. It's just getting beyond.
It does take up, I feel that one of the reasons it's different from the movie, it doesn't bother me, but I feel that one of the reasons it bothers people, and it didn't in the movies, is I feel that the flares, at least, maybe not the spinning, but the flares take up more percentage of the screen than the ones in the movies did. They were smaller in the movies. There was probably more of them overall, per minute, but they were smaller and they took up a quadrant. There was actually one flare. It's the one that I said, oh man, Amy's going to hate that. Early on where all of, I believe, Pike's face was just gone.
It was this blue, yes, flare.
And it stretched across the whole screen, and it was a circle on his head. You saw the back of his hair, and that was it. And I was like, wow, that's an odd choice. I mean, that's pretty big, and he's kind of a main character, but...
Yeah, right? Okay. All right. Another tiny, tiny nitpick, and it only comes after... oh, shoot, what was the name? The one where we saw Saru's quarters. An oboe for Karen? Or was it the one before? Yeah, an oboe for Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go and we see Saru's beautiful quarters decorated, and he's got all this plant life, and it makes him feel like home. And I'm like, yes, that's the way a quarters should be, especially when you're on the ship long term. This isn't just a passenger ship. You are living there. And so here we are in Culber and Stamets' quarters, and Stamets comes in with this dinner. They're eating at a end table.
A coffee table, yeah.
A coffee table. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're telling me that Culber and Stamets never, ever, 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 ever sat at a dining room table in their quarters, that they always, 100% of the time, ate at a mess hall, and now they're there at a coffee table eating this dinner. I don't know, for some reason, that annoyed me.
Yeah, I don't know. That didn't bother me. Now, maybe it makes less sense.
He did say, well, you've never cooked for me before, so maybe they don't eat. But still, 100% of the time, you're going to eat your meals in mess hall. I don't know.
I just took that as Culber cooks. But, yeah, because Culber has to go get his own place to live now, right? Because I was trying to think, do they actually live together?
Yes.
Or, well, because they're not married, they're dating, so it would be logical for them to each have their own room, and that's why. Because to me, that room makes perfect sense for Stamets. A room like that, someone like him, that makes perfect sense. It doesn't when you add in the fact that Culber lives there too. Mm-hmm. Like I would see Culber as but he did say you have all my stuff still, so there was stuff somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, when I saw the table, I was just like, okay.
But they do that a lot in Star Trek.
I know they do.
That's like a Star Trek trope. Like nobody owns dining room tables.
Well, they did in TNG.
In their rooms? I mean, I kind of vaguely remember them sitting on couches a lot and eating.
No, there were dinners like Riker hosted breakfast where he was cooking those huge eggs. And
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, this ship is significantly
they did it right in
that.
TNG. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, with the worst relationships ever.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'll take the better relationship. You get the dining room table.
And one thing that I was talking actually to Chris Jones, and he brought it up, and now I'm seeing it as a nitpick. So we all know, because of the way that the writing was, like when, and I'm talking about Arium. So there's transmissions sent, and then they do research. And then it's because of, these, Tyler, are your codes that sent the transmissions. And, what was the other thing that they blamed on Tyler? The transmission and the launch?
They're giving up their position.
Yeah. So we all know that Tyler didn't do it. I mean, he obviously was very innocent and saying no. And then Pike takes his pen and says, well, we can't trust you and you can't trust you because we know that Section 31 has the mind
you don't even
thing.
know what you're doing.
Yeah. So the writing on it was great because we all knew that it was Arium. And so then when Arium is walking and they zoom in on her eyes and they have the 3 red dots. And Chris was like, that was unnecessary. We all know that she was the one who was doing it. They're treating us like we're being stupid viewers.
So I would say if I had a nitpick, you just nailed it.
Yeah.
Because when they showed the 3 dots, I was like that wasn't obvious.
Right. We all knew.
So at first I thought the way they were wording it was just too obvious for me, that they should have done it some other way, that when they show the 3 dots, you're like, oh, that's what they mean. But really, they just didn't need to show it to us.
Right.
Not to mention, forget just the 3 dots, they kept looking to her through the whole scene, talking with Tyler. Like, one of the other guys, you can't... And she was looking around like, does anyone notice it's me? That didn't even make sense. Oh, no.
You saw that from her facial expression.
I mean, it was just like ridiculous the way she kept looking up and over. Like she wanted to be...
Do.
Just whistling along, like, don't look at me. It was just kind of, I don't know. That would be the one nitpick, because obviously she's not the Red Angel now, right? I was dead wrong about that, but that's okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay with being wrong. But she's obviously just a mole for Section 31, which now means the Red Angel is either Section 31, if you buy that the Red Angel grabbed the thing on the other side of the portal, the teleport and send it back. I don't. I just believe there's a Section 31 500 years from now that was sitting on the other side of that portal, grabbed the portal, the time
probe.
Distortion. Yeah, grabbed the probe and sent it back as when they called it a cephalopod, which was kind of weird because it was still metal. But, what's that? It's kind of like an octopus.
Yeah.
But, so now, so Section 31 is 500 years in the future, making sure what? That it still survives? Is it 500 years in the future, making sure that it gets kicked out of Starfleet? Like, where's this? What's the point? But
yeah.
And I was talking to, speaking of Section 31, I was talking to Brandon today, and he didn't listen to last week's episode yet. And he goes, I know what they're doing with Georgiou. She's going to take over Section 31, and that's why it gets kicked out. And I was like, yes.
Yep.
I said that.
Good job, Brandon.
But he didn't listen last week yet, so I can't get too upset with him. But I think he's right. I think he's dead right.
Yeah. So after, that sort of reveal, and I use air quotes around it, that, Arium with the 3 red dots, again, on my rewatch, it was spooky. I got the chills when we come on and Arium is sitting in the captain's chair. And I was like, oh, it gave me the chills.
Yeah, because she's the damn mole.
Yes.
And I think that would have been even better of a scene if we don't see the stupid her looking away and them looking at her eye. Like, that would have been even better.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, we know. Mm-hmm. You know who benefited from that scene? My 8-year-old son.
There you go.
But that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I just have a couple other quotes that I wanted to just touch on real quickly. And they actually came from Spock. And I loved when he said, "How is it I can remember tomorrow?" Sometimes the writing of these lines are so impactful. And just the whole timey-wimey of that sentence, remember tomorrow.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great quote.
And
I don't know if you're going to say it, but I'm going to say it because I love the next part of that when she's like, well, she asked about the murders and he's like, "You're in my thoughts and I still have to explain that I didn't murder them. Do you see anyone dead here?"
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I know. It is.
Phenomenal.
It is.
Which then leads to him still being pissed off at her at the end because you still don't trust me.
Right.
This whole thing about that he's pissed off about isn't really, I don't think, now that I'm saying it out loud, isn't really so much that she hurt him. It's that she didn't trust him.
Yeah.
She didn't trust him to be a good brother and want to protect her.
Mm-hmm.
Or be able to. Look, he was a kid. He probably couldn't. But his dad could have and his mother could have.
Which sort of goes back to the test of entering the Talos system.
Yep.
This is a test. Do you trust me?
So trust is another theme in this whole episode.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, and then my second to last. I love when Spock says, "I have nothing to build on, but build I must." Like, when you're at rock bottom, what can you do but just go up from there? And he's like, my logic isn't working. My timeline isn't working. My humanity isn't. He lists all these things that aren't working in his life. He has nothing, but he still must build. And I loved it.
Him and Culber.
Yeah.
They're in the same place.
Yes.
And there's nothing better to build on than steady rock.
Yeah.
So sometimes it sucks. You got to hit rock bottom. But sometimes you got to hit rock bottom. I mean, I've done it. I've hit rock bottom in my life, and the only one way to go is up. You start going up.
Yeah.
You know? It makes you a better person for it in the end.
Yeah. And the last thing that I truly love, just again, building on this, the crew being a family, where Pike is like, okay, we're going to, break orders. And, he's about ready to give the speech. And who is it? Detmer? Or no, it's Tilly. It's like, "I think you have the crew, sir." And it's just like, oh, it gave me the feels. It was a warm blanket around me.
She
I
did
loved
say
it.
something, but I don't think she said those words.
Yeah, she says, "I think you have the crew, sir."
Because then didn't Michael say those? Because Michael said a sentence after that too.
Oh, I can't remember who said it.
Tilly
I just
said
wrote it down.
something, I think. Oh, no. Detmer asked for the coordinates.
Oh, yeah.
What are the coordinates? Like, cut him off mid-sentence.
Yeah.
And then maybe it was Tilly. I thought it was Michael for some reason. I only watched it once. You're probably right. And she said, "I think you have the crew, sir." And then...
Yep.
That's it. We're going to do it.
Yep.
So...
Yeah.
But this is probably the only outcome that could somehow save Michael from being a mutineer again. Because she went to Talos, Talos 4, which was going to get her in a ton of trouble. But now that the whole crew is doing it, she's kind of following orders.
Right. Yeah.
So the crew will get in trouble, and we know how that works out. Everyone in Starfleet gets a slap on the wrist, and they are still the flagship for some reason.
Yes.
So.
Well, Discovery's not the flagship.
It's the most important, though.
Yeah.
So,
because we're watching it. That's why.
But it's not even. No, if you had a military operation and that was the experimental way of travel, and it basically could have won any war, it would still be the most important. Probably wouldn't be the flagship because you don't want people to see it. But
well, then don't tell the TOS listeners because they think that Enterprise 1701 is the flagship.
No, they're right. It's the flagship. Discovery is just the most important.
Okay. Well, Patrick, tell me your final thoughts about this episode.
All right, so I really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of my favorite episodes of the series and possibly Star Trek. I mean, I know last week I said, like, that's crazy that people were saying that kind of stuff, but this episode was amazing. And I think this one will definitely hold up through the end of the season. So as of right now, it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite episode of the season and series. One thing we didn't touch on while we were talking, and I really wanted to, was the way they tricked Leland into thinking he had them.
Oh,
and they didn't.
yeah.
Because that was such a... We should have talked about it during Pike and Vina, but that was such an amazing scene where he's like, if you don't let her go, we're going to rip them apart, molecule by molecule. And Pike wasn't going... He was going to rip them apart. He was steadfast in the idea that... And I think really he was steadfast in the idea that they need Spock's memories more than he needs them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were going to let go before he was going to play chicken and hope to win. But then Vina comes to him and says, just let him go, trust me. And here's that trusting again. Yeah. And with no other explanation, he tells them to let go, and nobody else can believe it on the bridge. Mm-hmm. And then the shuttlecraft's coming up, and nobody can believe they walk off the shuttlecraft. For a second, they had me fooled.
Oh, yeah.
So, it worked, and it worked on them, and they couldn't believe it. And the way Michael tells him, like, I think you don't understand what's going on here, dummy. Like, as she disappears, because it wasn't really Michael, it was the projection, but that was such a great scene. It really tied the whole episode together great.
Yeah, it did. With the illusions and the trust and everything, it was good.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, this was another great episode. I don't even think I can even rank them because, each week they're just so amazing. Well, mostly cinematic outside of the lens flares. I guess that's what makes it cinematic. And the spinning. But no, like the characters and the actors and the chemistry that they all have with each other and the delivery of the lines and the lines themselves are just so brilliant and makes for such a believable story that I am sucked into these amazing relationships that are just going deeper and more complex and, just so amazing. I really am enjoying season 2. I liked season 1, but I'm really enjoying season 2 so much better and very looking forward to see what happens next week.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun talking about If Memory Serves today, but this isn't the only thing we've been discussing on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Earl Grey.
You're right. There's definitely something that we need to look at with death. And although it's very sad, but like you're saying, Richard, like the opposite of enjoy the time that you have while you're alive with them. And that's what, and again, as you said, Richard, like if you don't forget them, they really will still be a part of you in your life. And their influence is going to be just as real, from your memory of them.
Literary Treks.
So all of that's coming to, and then you get all good things going through your brain of, oh yes, Worf and Troy. And I've always loved them together. And then when I started reading this book, it brought out this emotion of, what? No, this cannot happen. I don't even want to see Deanna with Worf at all. And I was so surprised by that because I've always liked Troy and Worf together.
Melodic Treks.
So somebody that conceivably is into the modern jazz quartet, which is like having some fine wine, sometimes wants a piece of cake, and Slim and Slam, that would be cake. And these sort of, not really jump blues or R&B, but saxophone players that played modern jazz that were in this bluesier, more soul style. There were people around then like Illinois Jacquet and Arnett Cobb, Jimmy Forrest, Gene Ammons.
The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
The time is not variable, so it's not going to matter if time is the constant there. So when he says on my mark, that means here it is. That's where I need to go. So send me there.
Yeah,
Mic
okay.
drop.
I'll buy it, but I still don't believe it.
Mic drop.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcast. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review.
Now, about that star rating and written review, listeners, we still have our giveaway, the iTunes. If you leave us a star rating and written review, your name will be entered in to receive a Captain Pike pin from Fansets. And we now have 7 entries. So we got 2 more since last time we spoke. Very excited. So keep them coming. This is going till the end of season 2. So please do that. We would love to get your comments as usual. Now, if you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Windows Phone, and most third-party apps. And you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's shows, and there's many ways for you to do that. The best place to join the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge. That will come right to Amy. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not making children cry for cheating?
Well, when I'm not doing that, it doesn't happen that often.
You said you were very happy about it, though.
Happy, proud, you know.
Yeah, you said proud, but same thing.
You can find me here on the network where I co-host Earl Grey, which talks about Next Generation. You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network co-hosting Discoville that talks about the Orville and Discovery, as if I don't get enough Discovery talk. You can also find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place is there on the Babel Conference. So, Patrick, where can people reach you when you're not touching blue flowers?
Oh, well, when I'm not doing that and making all sorts of cool tones and notes and whatnot, you can find me on Twitter at MagicDrop5. It's no spaces. The 5 is a digit. You can also find me popping up in the Babel Conference, which life got a little crazy this week, but I've been there a lot more recently, and I plan on being there again as time frees up a little bit. And you can find me over going every other week now. I will be on Warp 5 on Fridays with Brandon. And one last place you can find me is I will be at the Great Gathering in Ohio. I don't have a location yet. It's in March. It's a wrestling card game universe that I'm involved in, and their big event will be in Ohio in March this year. So, check out SRG Universe to see what that's all about.
Great. Well, if you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, which we just recorded today for our listeners, producer credits, and more available through our special patrons website, The Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you will find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
We'd also like to thank all our musical notes, our associate producers, Norman C. Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, Cornelia Reutner, Ryan Millette, Chris Trabuzio, Brian Maloche. Thank you for supporting Trek FM and The Edge.
Thank you for listening, and join us next time to see what's happening on the edge of Federation space.